Okay, let's unpack this. In a world where, I mean, every few years our phones get exponentially smarter, our computers faster, and self-driving cars are moving from concept to reality, there's one area where progress often feels stubbornly, maybe even agonizingly slow.
Yeah.
Medicine. Why does it still take like well over a decade and literally billions of dollars to develop a single new drug? Why aren't we seeing medical breakthroughs at the same lightning speed as, say, computing power or space exploration?
Yeah.
It's a question that has probably crossed your mind, right? Especially when you think about maybe a loved one waiting for a new treatment, or just look at the ever-increasing cost of healthcare.
It's a profoundly important question. It really is. And you've highlighted one of the most persistent and, frankly, most expensive challenges of our time.
Right.
While technology in so many sectors seems to accelerate at an exponential pace, faster, cheaper, better, the world of drug development has been following a completely opposite, almost counterintuitive trend.
The opposite. Wow.
Yeah, it's a paradox that has frustrated, well, everyone involved, scientists, pharmaceutical companies, patients for decades now. And this relentless increase in cost and time for new medicines isn't just like a random fluctuation. It's a deeply entrenched pattern, and it even has its own name.
That's right. And that's what we're diving deep into today, that very paradox. We're going to unravel something called Eroom's Law, which, funnily enough, is more spelled backward, and for a very good reason. We'll explore how it has been this persistent, really formidable challenge for decades in pharmaceutical R&D. And then here's where it gets really interesting. I think we'll investigate how artificial intelligence, or AI, is stepping into the ring trying to fundamentally flip that script.
Yeah, could AI be the actual game changer here?
Exactly. Could it finally make medicine development faster, more efficient, and, ultimately more affordable for all of us? It's a pretty tantalizing prospect, isn't it? Offering hope for countless conditions that remain untreatable today.
Absolutely. So we'll trace the arduous, multi-stage traditional journey of a drug, from that initial spark of an idea in the lab to a medicine actually reaching patients.
Okay.
And in doing that, we'll highlight the massive hurdles and the critical bottlenecks where immense amounts of time and money just seem to vanish.
Why? Where does it all go?
Then we'll zoom in on the specific, often quite groundbreaking ways AI is disrupting these very bottlenecks, particularly in the earliest, most critical stages of R&D, the ones, furthest from patient trials, but are absolutely foundational to everything that follows.
Makes sense.
We'll look at some stunning successes, things that really hint at a profoundly brighter future, but we also have to acknowledge the inevitable stumbling blocks, right?
Yeah.
The early setbacks that are just a natural part of any groundbreaking journey into, uncharted territory.
Sure, it's never a straight line.
Exactly. So our mission today is really to equip you with a crystal clear understanding of this profound shift, what it actually means for the future of healthcare, and what tantalizing possibilities lie ahead as AI starts to hopefully fulfill its immense promise.
Okay, so let's start by maybe contrasting these two very different paces of progress. Most of us are familiar with Moore's Law, right? Even if we don't know it by name or like the precise definition. It's that kind of fundamental observation that explains why our phones get faster, why our computers become more powerful, and why the tech we rely on every day seems to get cheaper and more capable every couple of years.
Yeah, that doubling effect.
Exactly. For decades, it's held remarkably true. The cost of processing power falls by about half roughly every 2 years, while the capabilities, effectively double.
Just think about your first home computer, maybe.
Oh, yeah. It probably had, a tiny fraction of the processing power of the smartphone in my pocket right now, yet it costs way more in real terms.
Right, or digital cameras.
Yeah.
What used to be expensive, bulky professional gear is now just standard in your phone, producing incredible quality.
It's amazing.
And this isn't just about raw speed. It's about accessibility. It's about miniaturization, this unparalleled efficiency that has driven innovation and lowered costs across countless industries.
Communication, entertainment.
Science, data analysis. Moore's Law has been this foundational pillar. It's a testament to sustained, predictable technological advancement, and it has profoundly reshaped our world. We kind of expect it now, don't we? This constant acceleration in almost every tech sector.
You really do. But, as you alluded to earlier, medicine marches to a completely different beat. A far more, frustrating beat.
Yeah, frustrating is a good word for it. While Moore's Law describes falling costs and increasing power, the pharmaceutical industry has its own rather grim opposite. Eroom's law.
More spelled backward.
Exactly. And it perfectly encapsulates this counter trend. It states that instead of falling, the cost of developing a new drug doubles roughly every 9 years. Doubles. Every 9 years.
Yeah.
That's just wild. Imagine if your phone got twice as expensive every decade instead of twice as powerful.
It's unthinkable in tech, right?
Yeah.
But that's the reality drug developers have faced. And this isn't just some minor statistical quirk. It's a monumental systemic challenge with profound implications for global health.
So how bad is it, really? Can you put some numbers on that?
Let's put this into stark perspective. Back in the 1960s, if you invested $1 billion, and that's adjusted to 2008 prices, so we're comparing apples to apples, accounting for inflation, that $1 billion in pharmaceutical R&D could yield about 10 new drugs.
10 new drugs for $1 billion. Okay.
A pretty remarkable return on investment, right? A clear pathway to addressing health needs. But fast forward to today.
Yeah.
And that same $1 billion isn't even enough to produce one single new drug.
Less than one drug. For the same $1 billion. It basically vanishes into the complex, expensive, and often unsuccessful process. That's the core problem we're up against. The cost has absolutely skyrocketed while the output relative to the investment has just plummeted.
That's a truly staggering figure. 10 drugs down to less than one for the same adjusted $1 billion. It really highlights the incredible inefficiency and complexity that's somehow crept into the system over the decades. So, what's driving this? Why is it getting harder, not easier, to find new treatments?
It's really a confluence of factors. On average, it now takes a staggering 10 years, often more, and over $2 billion, sometimes significantly more, to take a drug from the very first concept in a lab to actually reaching the market and being available to patients.
10 years and $2 billion per drug.
On average, yeah. And the risks are incredibly high. Less than 1/10. Think about that. Less than 10% of drug candidates that even enter clinical trials.
So they've already passed a lot of hurdles.
Exactly. They've already passed extensive preclinical testing.
Uh-huh.
Less than 10% of those actually get approved by regulators like the FDA.
So more than 90% fail in human testing.
That's right. More than 90% fail, often after hundreds of millions, if not billions, have already been poured into them.
Ouch.
And part of it is, many of the easier diseases, those with really clear biological targets, have already seen significant breakthroughs. What's left are often the really complex conditions. Alzheimer's, many cancers, autoimmune diseases, where the underlying biology is still not fully understood. That makes drug discovery inherently much, much harder.
So the low-hanging fruit has mostly been picked.
Arguably, yes. Plus, regulatory hurdles have also significantly increased over the decades. Regulators rightly demand more extensive safety and efficacy data, which adds immensely to both the time and the cost.
Makes sense. Safety first.
Absolutely. So you have the sheer scale of investment and time coupled with these consistently low success rates, plus the pursuit of increasingly complex diseases. It paints a clear picture of the immense challenges. It's a tough business.
And how many drugs actually make it through all that each year?
Well, in the past decade, America's Food and Drug Administration, the FDA, has approved an average of just 53 new drugs every year.
53? That seems incredibly low, considering the global effort and investment.
It really underscores the bottleneck, doesn't it? It's a very small output for such a massive global R&D effort, given the, trillions spent globally.
Okay, so given those daunting numbers, 10 years, $2 billion, 90% failure rate.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder, what exactly makes this process so long and expensive? It's not just one monolithic thing, right? It's a series of stages.
Exactly. It's a sequence of incredibly challenging and often financially draining stages.
So let's unpack that traditional journey a drug takes. Because understanding these steps, I think, is absolutely key to seeing where AI can potentially make a difference.
That's a crucial distinction, yeah. The entire process can be broken down into several fundamental stages, each with its own set of complexities and time sinks.
Okay, where does it start?
It all begins with what we call stage 1. Target identification. This is the absolute foundation.
Target identification, okay.
Right. It involves identifying a specific biological target, usually a protein, maybe a gene, or a molecular pathway within the body that's known to be intricately associated with a particular disease.
So like finding the broken part.
Kind of, yeah. In cancer, for instance, it might be a protein that's overactive and driving uncontrolled cell growth. Or in a neurodegenerative disorder, maybe it's a dysfunctional enzyme. Researchers spend years, literally years, poring over vast amounts of genomic data, patient samples, scientific literature just trying to unravel the intricate mechanisms of a disease to pinpoint these precise targets.
So they're asking what molecular component, if you could just tweak it, could stop or reverse this disease?
Precisely. And this requires deep biological understanding. It can be incredibly difficult, often yielding many potential targets, but only a few turn out to be truly viable, druggable targets.
Okay, so once you've pinpointed that specific malfunctioning part, let's say you found a promising protein target. What's the next monumental task?
Well, once a promising target is identified, the real hunt begins. Stage 2, molecule search and discovery.
Finding the drug itself.
Finding a molecule, a chemical compound that can actually interact with that target in a beneficial way. So this molecule might block the target's activity if it's overactive, or maybe enhance it if it's underperforming. It's the potential therapeutic agent.
Okay, so how do they find these molecules? It sounds like finding a needle in a haystack.
It often is. The analogy often used is looking for a very specific key for a very specific lock. And traditionally, this was primarily done through a process called high-throughput screening, or HTS.
High-throughput screening, what's that involve?
Imagine vast libraries containing hundreds of thousands, sometimes even millions, of unique chemical compounds. These compounds are systematically tested, often using robotics, against the identified target protein to see if any of them cause the desired biological response.
Millions of tests.
Wow. Yeah, it's a colossal undertaking, a needle in a haystack problem on an industrial scale, generating massive amounts of data that then need to be painstakingly analyzed. Even with sophisticated automation, this phase is incredibly resource-intensive. You need huge chemical inventories, specialized lab equipment, teams of chemists, biologists.
Okay, so that sounds like a huge filter already. And then, once you maybe find a few promising keys, even if it's just a handful out of millions screened, you move into what sounds like an even more rigorous, resource-intensive filtering stage.
Precisely. That crucial filtering stage is known as stage 3, preclinical testing. And this is where the massive scale of the challenge truly becomes apparent, and where, frankly, a disproportionate amount of time and money just disappears.
Preclinical, so before humans.
Exactly. Before any human testing,
Yeah.
the handful of promising molecules, the hits from screening, are subjected to really rigorous testing. This often starts with sophisticated computer models, what we call in silico testing, to predict their properties and potential interactions. Then, critically, they move to in vitro, basically. Test tube experiments using cells and tissues, followed by extensive in vivo testing, which means testing in living organisms, typically animals.
Right, the animal testing phase.
Yeah. And this animal testing is crucial, though complex, to assess a potential drug's safety, its dosage, and get an initial idea of its efficacy in a living system before you'd ever consider giving it to a human.
So how long does this preclinical stage take, and how much does it cost?
This entire preclinical stage is incredibly resource-intensive and lengthy. It involves things like comprehensive toxicology studies, is it safe? Pharmacokinetic studies, how does the drug move through the body? Pharmacodynamic studies, how does the drug affect the body? This whole process can easily take years, often 3 to 6 years on its own.
3 to 6 years, just preclinical.
Yeah, and critically, it accounts for nearly a third, about 30% of the entire drug development cost.
A third of the billions, before a single human trial.
Exactly. Before a single pill even touches a human tongue, you're talking years of work and a massive chunk of the total budget, just in this preclinical phase. It's a huge filter, a monumental bottleneck where most promising ideas just fall away. They prove ineffective or too toxic or maybe too difficult to manufacture at scale.
So how many actually make it through this preclinical gauntlet?
The numbers are pretty stark. It's estimated that less than 1 in 1,000 compounds that start this preclinical journey actually makes it to human trials.
1 in 1,000. Wow. Okay, that really puts Eroom's law into perspective. So this preclinical phase, taking years, eating up a third of the budget, filtering millions of compounds down to maybe 1 or 2 candidates, with a tiny success rate. This really feels like where the immense promise of AI enters the scene, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Given that it's such a major bottleneck for both time and cost, how exactly is artificial intelligence stepping in to fundamentally boost the chances of success and, hopefully begin to flip that Eroom's law script we talked about?
This is where we're seeing a really profound transformation starting to happen. Now, it's worth saying the pharmaceutical industry has used computational models for decades, right? It's
Yeah.
not entirely new to use
Right.
computers.
Simulations and modeling aren't new.
Exactly. But AI is fundamentally changing drug discovery in several profound ways that go far beyond those traditional simulations or just processing data faster. It's about intelligence, it's about learning, and prediction on a scale that was previously unimaginable. It allows for much more intelligent, targeted design.
Okay, so how? What are the specific ways AI is making a difference?
Well, first, AI significantly improves researchers' understanding of diseases and their targets. Think about it. Traditional research involved painstaking, often manual, analysis of individual data sets.
Right. Reading papers, looking at specific experiments.
AI, by contrast, can analyze truly vast and disparate amounts of data, everything from millions of genomic sequences, huge electronic health records, hundreds of thousands of scientific papers, clinical trial results, chemical properties of molecules, just this ocean of information. By sifting through all of this, AI algorithms can uncover subtle patterns, hidden correlations, and maybe novel insights into the underlying mechanisms of disease that no human, or even team of humans, could possibly identify in a lifetime.
So it finds connections we might miss.
Exactly. And this enhanced understanding helps pinpoint the right targets from the very start, hopefully avoiding costly detours down unproductive research pathways.
Makes sense. Better target, better chance of success. What next?
From there, AI moves directly to the molecules. It drastically accelerates molecule identification and optimization. Instead of that exhaustive trial and error approach of high throughput screening we discussed.
Testing millions of compounds.
Right. Software powered by AI can predict which molecules are most likely to interact effectively and safely with a given target. Imagine training an AI on millions of known drug-target interactions and then asking it to find new ones.
So it learns what works.
It uses that learned knowledge to propose promising candidates. But AI goes even further. It can then fine-tune their structures with incredible precision. It can optimize a molecule, suggesting subtle changes to its chemical makeup. Add this atom here, change this bond there to boost its potential efficacy, maybe reduce potential side effects, improve its stability, or enhance how it's absorbed in the body.
And it does this virtually before making the actual chemical.
Exactly. All before it's even synthesized in a lab. This massively reduces the number of compounds that need to be physically made and tested in those expensive preclinical experiments.
Oh, wow. Okay, that sounds hugely efficient. And then there's the really revolutionary aspect I've heard about, the ability for AI to effectively, well, dream up entirely new molecules. That sounds almost like science fiction.
It really is a paradigm shift, moving beyond just finding and optimizing existing ones. And this is where generative AI comes into play.
Generative AI, like the kind that creates images or text.
Sort of, but applied to chemistry. This isn't just about finding existing molecules more efficiently. It can actually design entirely new molecules from scratch. You tell the AI, I want a molecule that binds to this specific pocket on this target protein and has these desired properties like solubility or low toxicity.
Okay.
And the generative AI algorithms can invent novel chemical structures that have never existed before, but are predicted to have that desired therapeutic effect.
Amazing.
It's like having an infinite, incredibly intelligent virtual laboratory constantly creating novel candidates tailored to specific needs. It vastly expands the chemical space that drug hunters can explore, way beyond what human chemists could ever conceive or synthesize manually. It fundamentally changes the game from a search problem to a design problem.
Okay, one of the biggest moments in this space, one that really captured the scientific world's imagination and made headlines a few years ago, involved a specific AI model. I'm thinking of AlphaFold.
AlphaFold, yes.
What's the story there, and why was it such a game changer, not just for drug discovery, but for biology in general?
AlphaFold is a perfect illustration of AI's transformative power in a very specific yet profoundly impactful area of biology. Back in 2020, AlphaFold 2, which is a model developed by DeepMind Google's AI lab, truly stunned the scientific world.
What did it do?
It achieved something previously thought to be almost insurmountable. It accurately predicted the 3D structure of nearly every protein known to science, including almost all proteins in the human body. This was considered one of biology's grand challenges, a puzzle scientists have been grappling with for like half a century.
Okay, predicting protein structure. Why is knowing a protein's precise 3D shape so incredibly important for developing drugs?
Understanding a protein's 3D structure is absolutely critical because its structure dictates its function. Think of it like this. You can't design a key if you don't know the precise shape of the lock you're trying to open.
Right. Form fits function.
Exactly. Proteins are the molecular machines that carry out most of the work in our cells. Their intricate folded shapes determine how they interact with other molecules, including potential drug candidates. Before AlphaFold, figuring out a protein's structure was this painstaking, often impossible experimental process.
How did they do it before?
Using methods like X-ray crystallography or cryo-electron microscopy, each structure could take months, sometimes even years, to resolve, requiring huge amounts of resources, specialized equipment, and expertise. And even then, many important protein structures remained elusive, too difficult to crystallize or image.
So AlphaFold just bypassed all that.
It essentially did. It brought clarity to a previously opaque and incredibly complex area of biology. It democratized access to this fundamental structural information for researchers worldwide. It basically gave us a near-complete blueprint of the human body's molecular machinery almost overnight.
Incredible. And then they improved upon it, didn't they? I heard about AlphaFold 3 more recently. How does that build on the previous breakthrough?
Indeed. Then, just in May 2024, its successor, AlphaFold 3, was announced, expanding its capabilities even further. While AlphaFold 2 focused primarily on proteins, AlphaFold 3 can now predict the structures of other critical molecules that make up living things, and, crucially, how they interact.
Other molecules. Like what?
Not just proteins, but also DNA, RNA, and those small molecules we mentioned earlier called ligands, which are often the very drug candidates we're looking for. The key is designed to fit the protein locks.
Ah, so it can model the drug interacting with the target.
Exactly. And not just the drug and the main target, but how they interact within the context of other biological molecules nearby. This broader predictive power allows for even more sophisticated and accurate drug design, because it can model how a potential drug interacts with various biological components, maybe even predicting potential off-target effects.
So it's about predicting how entire biological systems might interact at a molecular level, not just individual pieces. That sounds like a monumental leap in understanding.
It is. And the real power of these models for drug development comes back to speed and efficiency. It's their ability to reduce what used to be months, sometimes even years, of laborious trial and error experiments in a wet lab. Physically mixing chemicals, running biological assays.
Yeah, test tubes and pipettes.
Right. Reducing all that to just hours of computation on a powerful computer. You can now virtually simulate millions of molecular interactions, test potential modifications to a drug candidate, filter out unlikely candidates with incredible speed and accuracy, all before you commit expensive resources to the lab bench.
Months or years down to hours.
Yeah.
That is a monumental shift.
It's a monumental shift in efficiency, directly attacking that enormous time and resource drain of the preclinical phase we talked about. It lets researchers focus their incredibly expensive and time-consuming physical lab work on only the absolute most promising candidates, identified through computation. It drastically improves the odds of success before human trials even begin.
That's incredible speed, reducing months to hours.
Yeah.
But does this translate to actual drugs? I mean, it sounds great in theory, but are there real-world examples of this AI-powered efficiency translating into tangible results that are actually entering the drug pipeline?
Absolutely. It's not just theory anymore. We're already seeing concrete examples of this efficiency paying off. Take in silico medicine, for instance. They're a startup that specifically uses AI across their drug development platform.
Okay, in silico, what did they achieve?
They reported a truly remarkable success story a little while back. Their AI software platform was able to identify a novel drug target and design a potential drug molecule suitable for human trials in only 18 months.
18 months, from target ID to a clinical candidate.
Exactly. And at a reported cost of just $2.7 million for that discovery phase. This was for a drug targeting idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis, which is a nasty chronic and progressive lung disease with limited treatment options.
Wow. Okay, so 18 months and under $3 million. Compare that again to the industry average.
Well, remember, the average is over 10 years and often more than $2 billion just to get a drug to market, with a huge chunk of that time and costs sunk before clinical trials even start. So achieving that preclinical milestone, identifying a target, and designing a promising molecule ready for trials in that time frame and budget.
It's a tiny fraction of the usual time and expense.
Precisely. It's a powerful real-world demonstration of the potential when AI is leveraged effectively in that preclinical phase. It shows AI's ability to dramatically shrink those initial, most time-consuming and costly stages, really transforming drug discovery from that laborious search into a a much more intelligent design process.
Okay, so the preclinical phase is getting supercharged by AI. Identifying targets, designing molecules, predicting structures at speeds and costs that were unthinkable before. In silico medicine's story is incredibly exciting.
Correct.
But what happens next? What happens once these AI-designed molecules move beyond the lab, beyond the preclinical stage, and into human trials?
Correct.
Are we seeing the same kind of acceleration there? Or does human biology, with all its inherent complexity and unpredictability, remain the ultimate gatekeeper, regardless of how smart the initial AI design was?
That's the crucial next step, isn't it? And it really highlights where the challenges start to shift. These breakthroughs in the preclinical phase are definitely progressing into, as you say, the business end of drug development human testing.
So AI drugs are actually making it into people.
Yes. BCG, the Boston Consulting Group, a leading global consultancy, estimates that right now there are about 65 AI-inspired molecules currently undergoing human trials globally.
65.
Yeah.
That's actually a pretty significant number, isn't it? More than I might have guessed.
It is significant. It indicates a real commitment within the pharmaceutical industry to these AI-driven approaches. It shows these aren't just, academic curiosities anymore. Companies are betting real money on them.
Okay, 65 AI-inspired molecules in human trials. Where are they in that whole trial process? Can you maybe break down the different phases for us quickly?
Sure. The clinical trial process itself is multi-phased, highly regulated, and designed to rigorously test a drug's safety and effectiveness over time. We'll start with phase 1.
Phase 1.
That typically involves a small group of healthy volunteers, maybe 20 to 100 people. The main focus here is on safety. What are the side effects? What's a safe dosage range? How does the human body metabolize and excrete the drug?
Okay, safety first.
Then it moved to phase 2. This is where the drug is tested in a larger group of patients, maybe a few hundred, who actually have the target disease or condition.
So this is the first test of whether it actually works.
Exactly. Phase 2 is crucial because it's the first real test of efficacy. Does the drug have the intended therapeutic effect in patients? And it continues to monitor safety and side effects in a larger group. This phase alone can take several years.
Right. And phase 3.
Phase 3 is the big one. It involves an even larger patient population, sometimes thousands of patients across multiple hospitals or clinics, often internationally. The goal here is to confirm the efficacy found in phase 2, monitor for less common or long-term side effects, and often compare the new drug directly to existing standard treatments or a placebo.
And this is the longest and most expensive phase.
By far. Phase 3 trials are incredibly expensive and can easily last 3 to 5 years, sometimes longer. Only after successful phase 3 trials can a company submit all the data to regulators like the FDA for approval.
Okay, got it. So back to those 65 AI-inspired drugs. Where are they in this process?
Well, according to that BCG estimate, around a third of them, so maybe 20 or so, are currently in that crucial phase 2 stage.
Phase 2. So they're being tested for efficacy in patients right now.
Exactly. And following phase 2, the companies face an even more critical and incredibly expensive decision: whether to commit the massive resources needed to move forward into those huge phase 3 studies. Historically, remember, less than a third of drug candidates that even enter phase 2 successfully make that leap to phase 3.
Wow, so even getting into phase 2 is tough, but getting out successfully is even tougher.
It's an incredibly high bar, yeah. The attrition rate is steep.
Okay, it sounds promising that so many AI-inspired drugs are even getting to human trials, especially into phase 2, which seems like such a critical proving ground.
Yeah.
But, well, it's medicine, right? Nothing is ever a straight line. Has there been any bumps in the road, any early setbacks with these AI-designed drugs, especially given how relatively new this whole approach is? Because the promise is huge, but so are the stakes.
Indeed. You're right to ask. While AI offers immense promise in accelerating and refining the discovery and design parts, the complexities of human biology, the inherent unpredictability of how a novel molecule will behave in a living, breathing, complex human system, those remain formidable challenges.
So have some failed.
Yes, some AI-designed drugs have already stumbled at this critical phase 2 stage, unfortunately. For example, Benevolent AI and Exscientia, two prominent British AI drug discovery startups, real leaders in this space, they both recently reported disappointing results in clinical trials.
Oh, really? What have they?
In Benevolent AI's case, their AI-discovered drug candidate for atopic dermatitis, or eczema, failed to meet its primary endpoint in a phase 2A trial. Essentially, it didn't show the statistically significant level of efficacy they were hoping for compared to placebo.
Ah, okay. Disappointing. And Exscientia.
For Exscientia, one of their AI-designed cancer drug candidates, which was in a phase 12 study for advanced solid tumors, had its development halted. This was due to a combination of factors, including some early safety signals and perhaps efficacy concerns that emerged during the trial.
That's definitely a sobering reminder, isn't it? That even the smartest AI generating the molecule can't perfectly predict what will happen in actual human beings.
Absolutely.
But does that mean AI isn't as revolutionary as maybe we hoped? Or is this just part of the learning curve in a truly complex field like drug development?
I think it's much more the latter. These setbacks, while undoubtedly disappointing, especially for the companies, the researchers, and most importantly, the patients who might have benefited, they aren't necessarily a condemnation of the AI approach itself.
Yeah.
They really underscore a critical point. AI is an incredibly powerful tool to design more promising candidates and make smarter choices much earlier in the process, significantly improving the initial odds compared to traditional methods. However, it doesn't, and perhaps never, fully can eliminate the inherent biological complexities and uncertainties of human trials.
Biology is messy.
Biology is incredibly messy and variable between individuals, and importantly, the clinical trial timeline itself hasn't been significantly shortened by AI yet, because these are still lengthy, human-dependent processes governed by strict regulatory requirements, ethical considerations, and the sheer logistical challenges of recruiting and monitoring thousands of patients over many years.
Right. AI can design the drug faster, but testing it in people still takes time.
Exactly. But what AI does do, even considering these early failures, is improve the quality and the rationale behind the candidates entering these expensive trials. The hope is that AI helps you avoid sending countless duds molecules destined to fail into those later stage trials in the first place. That's a different but equally crucial kind of benefit. It's about increasing the probability of success for the candidates you do advance.
Okay, that makes sense. It's about making better bets earlier on. So even with these individual setbacks, what's the broader outlook then? Is AI still seen as a major part of the solution to Eroom's law? Or are we maybe finding that new bottlenecks are emerging now that we've seemingly solved some of the preclinical challenges?
Despite these specific bumps in the road, the overall sentiment within the pharmaceutical industry and among leading experts remains, I'd say, highly optimistic. Christoph Meyer of BCG, who we mentioned earlier, he still believes that AI-based methods could plausibly double the overall productivity of R&D in the pharmaceutical industry in the coming years.
Double productivity, that's a huge claim.
It is, but it's not just about finding more drugs faster. It's about finding better, more targeted, and ultimately more successful drugs far more efficiently. And looking just ahead into 2025, for instance, it seems highly likely that maybe 4 or 5 AI-developed treatments, perhaps even more, could progress into those large pivotal phase 3 trials.
Okay, 4 or 5 moving to phase 3 next year. That still feels like a relatively small number in the grand scheme of things. But could that be a significant turning point if even a few of those eventually make it through phase 3 and get approved?
Precisely. It might seem like a small sample size compared to the hundreds of drugs and trials globally. However, each of these successful AI-driven medicines moving into late-stage trials points towards a truly profound, potentially transformative change in how we approach drug development.
Right.
So while AI hasn't drastically shortened the clinical trial timelines yet because, again, human biology and regulatory processes still require that rigorous, time-consuming validation, it is already helping pharmaceutical companies make significantly smarter choices about which molecules to take forward into clinical development in the first place.
Smarter choices, leading to fewer failures later.
That's the key benefit right now. By making better selections at the outset, AI helps reduce those devastatingly high overall failure rates, especially in the expensive later stages like phase 2 and phase 3. And consequently, that cuts colossal development costs.
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
If you're putting fundamentally better, more rigorously vetted candidates into the pipeline from the very start, you're bound to have more successes and fewer of those excruciatingly expensive late-stage failures down the line.
That's exactly it. There's some really interesting research on this. Andreas Bender, who's a leading expert in chemoinformatics at Cambridge University, did some modeling. He found that reducing failures in phase 2 trials by just 20%, which sounds maybe modest, right?
Yeah, 20% reduction.
Even just that 20% reduction in phase 2 failures could lead to a monumental saving of nearly $450 million on the development cost of a single drug.
Wow. $450 million saved per drug just by improving the phase 2 success rate by a fifth.
Yes. That's a staggering amount of money, and it's freed up not necessarily by accelerating the trials themselves, but purely by improving the quality, the betterness of the candidates entering them, thanks to smarter, AI-driven preclinical selection.
That's not theoretical. That's a quantifiable impact AI could be having right now.
Exactly. And that $450 million saved per drug. That's money that can be reinvested in R&D for other diseases, potentially bringing even more new treatments to patients who desperately need them. Or, ideally, it could potentially translate into more affordable medicines down the road. The efficiency gains are truly compelling, and they compound over time as the technology matures.
Okay, listening to all this, it really feels like we're standing at a genuinely pivotal moment in medical history, doesn't it? For decades, we've had Moore's Law as the gold standard for technological acceleration, showing us what exponential progress looks like in computing.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the flip side, we've had Eroom's Law acting as this incredibly frustrating counter-narrative in medicine, where costs just keep climbing relentlessly and progress often feels agonizingly slow. Are we finally seeing the beginning of the end for Eroom's Law, thanks to AI? Is this the inflection point we've been waiting for? Maybe a true reversal of that decades-long, depressing trend?
It's a fascinating parallel, isn't it? If we connect this back to the bigger picture, Moore's law in computing, as we know it, is actually starting to run out of steam. We're hitting fundamental physical limits. You can only shrink transistors so much before you run into quantum effects, heat problems. It's getting incredibly challenging and expensive to maintain that pace.
Right, the easy gains are gone there too, in a way.
Exactly. But in the pharmaceutical industry, Eroom's law, that trend of costs doubling every 9 years for the first time in a very long time, may soon face a similar fate. Not because of physical limits in biology necessarily, but because of intelligent automation, because of the sheer computational power and predictive intelligence that AI brings to bear on the problem.
So the forces are different, but the potential outcome breaking that long-held trend could be remarkably similar. Eroom's law might finally plateau or even reverse.
That's the hope and increasingly the expectation. We might be breaking an empirical observation that has held true for, 50 years or more?
So instead of being limited by the physical world of silicon, like computing is becoming, medicine was perhaps limited more by the immense complexity of biology and that inherent brute force trial and error approach we used for so long.
I think that's a fair assessment.
And now AI is helping to break through that biological complexity barrier, transforming drug discovery into something more akin to intelligent predictive design.
Precisely. And Christoph Meyer's projection from BCG that AI could double R&D productivity doesn't seem like just wishful thinking anymore. It's grounded in the incredible efficiencies we're already seeing demonstrated in the preclinical phase, and crucially, in the smarter decisions being made upstream in the drug discovery pipeline, leading to fewer late-stage failures.
Okay, but if AI makes discovery much faster and more efficient, does the bottleneck just shift?
That's the key question now, isn't it? The challenge will undoubtedly shift. While AI makes drug discovery more efficient and helps select much better candidates, the rigorous, complex, and incredibly time-consuming nature of human clinical trials remains the next major frontier. They still represent a massive investment of time, money, and human effort.
Right, you still need to test it safely and effectively in thousands of people over years.
Exactly. So this raises the important question. Will clinical trials simply become the new dominant bottleneck, replacing preclinical struggles? Or will AI eventually find ways to optimize those stages too?
That's a fascinating question. If AI has revolutionized discovery, could it eventually transform the trials themselves? How might that even work? Can AI help run clinical trials better?
It's a really compelling area of active research and development right now. While it's perhaps still more nascent than AI in discovery, AI definitely has the potential to optimize clinical trials in several profound ways.
Like how?
Well, for instance, AI could vastly improve patient recruitment. Finding the right patients for a specific trial is often a huge bottleneck. AI could analyze electronic health records, genomic data, even imaging data to identify the most suitable patients much more efficiently and matching them to trials they're most likely to benefit from.
Okay, finding patients faster. What else?
It could help design smarter trial protocols. AI could model different trial designs, optimizing dosage regimens, trial duration, the specific endpoints being measured, all based on predictive models derived from previous trial data and biological understanding, maybe leading to shorter, more focused trials. We might also see the rise of synthetic control arms or external control arms. This is where AI analyzes vast amounts of historical patient data from previous trials or real-world evidence to create a virtual comparison group.
Instead of needing a live placebo group.
Potentially, yes, or at least reducing the size of the placebo group. This could speed up trials, reduce costs, and ethically allow more patients access to potentially beneficial experimental treatments rather than a placebo.
That would be huge.
AI could also facilitate real-time data monitoring and analysis during the trial itself. Algorithms could constantly scan incoming data, identifying early efficacy signals or potential safety concerns much faster than human monitors could. This would allow researchers to make quicker decisions, maybe pivot the trial strategy, stop a trial early if it's clearly not working, or if safety issues arise, or perhaps even accelerate development if the results are exceptionally promising.
So spotting problems or successes much earlier.
Exactly. It could even predict which patients are more likely to experience specific adverse events, allowing for proactive monitoring and potentially making trials safer.
Wow. So the potential impact of AI isn't just limited to finding the drugs, but also potentially streamlining how we test them. The question isn't just about faster and cheaper drugs eventually, but fundamentally changing how we develop medicines,
Yeah.
right? From the very first spark of an idea all the way through the rigorous testing.
That's the ultimate vision.
It really feels like moving from decades of often, well, somewhat blind trial and error, towards intelligent predictive design and execution at almost every stage. It's a true paradigm shift in how we approach conquering disease. What an incredible deep dive this has been, really exploring the intersection of AI and medicine. We started by asking that fundamental question. Why has medicine development felt so frustratingly slow and expensive, especially when other technologies seem to race ahead? We explored the, frankly, grim realities of Eroom's law, understanding how the cost of developing a new drug has just relentlessly doubled, roughly every 9 years, for half a century.
Yeah, that relentless upward curve.
We then peeled back the layers of the traditional drug discovery process, zeroing in on that massive preclinical bottleneck, the years and billions of dollars consumed by painstaking, often highly inefficient experimentation before a drug even gets close to a human being.
And then we saw how AI, particularly through really groundbreaking models like AlphaFold, isn't just making incremental improvements. It's fundamentally reimagining that whole early process.
Right.
It's shifting drug discovery away from brute force screening and searching towards intelligent, targeted design, allowing us to identify and now even create from scratch, promising new molecules with unprecedented speed and efficiency.
Saving millions, potentially years, in those crucial early stages, and enabling far more precise, more informed decisions about which drug candidates actually deserve to enter that expensive clinical trial pipeline.
Absolutely, making smarter bets.
And even with those early setbacks we discussed in clinical trials, for some AI-designed drugs, which serve as a stark reminder of human biology's inherent complexity, the overall promise of AI feels clear and incredibly compelling. It means smarter decisions from the very beginning. It means hopefully significantly reduced failure rates in those incredibly expensive later stages. And it means a profound acceleration of the very first critical steps in bringing new treatments to all of us. It really does feel like the tide might finally be turning against Eroom's law.
It certainly feels that way, yes.
So here's something I want you, our listeners, to maybe mull over after this deep dive. If AI truly begins to overcome Eroom's law, if it really does make drug discovery dramatically faster and cheaper, how might that fundamentally change our relationship with health and disease?
Yeah, what are the downstream consequences?
Right. Will we see maybe a deluge of new treatments for conditions that are currently untreatable, revolutionizing how we live, maybe extending healthy lifespans significantly? Or will new challenges emerge? Will our ability to discover new medicines suddenly outpace our existing infrastructure for testing them, for regulating them, and crucially, for delivering these innovations equitably to everyone who needs them, regardless of where they live or their economic status?
That raises a really important question, doesn't it? What unprecedented opportunities and perhaps equally significant societal and ethical challenges will arise when the pace of medical innovation can be dictated more by the incredible power of computational algorithms and vast data sets, rather than primarily by the traditional limitations of slow, expensive, and often arduous wet lab science? The future of medicine, powered by AI, it seems, is no longer some distant dream. It feels like an unfolding reality, one that will undoubtedly reshape our world. It offers immense hope for conditions previously deemed incurable, but it also demands really thoughtful consideration about how we navigate such rapid progress responsibly and equitably for everyone.